Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Makers in Minnesota podcast. I'm Stephanie Hansen, and Makers in Minnesota is the podcast where we talk to cool people doing cool things. And I have a feeling we're going to get a good story here from our friend Don Kelly, who's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Flackers. And Flackers sounds like crackers because indeed it is a flax seed based cracker. Don, welcome to the program.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I have all kinds of thoughts about Flackers, but before we get started, I want you to tell me sort of how this whole idea of this cracker came to be.
For sure, for sure. So you mentioned I'm a co-founder. So my co-founder was a doctor, and our official company name is Doctor in the Kitchen. And how that came about, she created them, and we she created them because she was doing integrative medicine. She's a medical doctor,
Yeah.
and she was seeing patients, kind of for integrative medicine. And a lot of the times they were gluten free, or that gluten seemed to be the issue. And she created Flackers to help them have something crunchy and gluten free that they could eat. And she was testing it with them, you know, not testing with them, giving it to them. And they told her, "Hey, you should bring this to market." And along came me. We met at the dog park, actually,
What
and
kind
I
of dog do
was
you have?
well, had, because this was many years ago. She was just a very cute, sweet mix dog, and I would go to the dog park, and I met all sorts of friends there, and I met Allison, the doctor, there, and we just started chatting. And it's, hey, what do you do? What do you do? I was consulting at the time. My background has been in food with sales at General Mills, and then marketing at Pillsbury, and I was consulting with food companies. And she said, "Oh, I got this I'm a doctor. I do this," and it's all of a sudden, it came together and said, "Oh, well, great. I'll help you bring them to market." And that's how the Flackers story was born. And this was back in probably 2006 or seven. So quite a while ago. Yeah.
And you have recently, I feel like it's recently adjusted your packaging too, because for
Uh,
a long time you guys were in like a kind of the traditional cracker cardboard box, right? And now
yeah.
you're in more of like a poly sort of bag.
Yeah, we it's actually I think we I don't know the exact year that we did that, but it was probably 2014 maybe that we
Has
made
it
that.
been that long? Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people remember us for being in the box. We had this nice box, had a little window on it, and had a tray that we put
Yep.
the Flackers in, and we used to hand pack them into the tray, and it just seemed, at some point in time, it was like, okay, well, it makes a lot more sense if you don't have the box, and yeah, because there was a bag and a
Yeah.
box and a tray involved, so we eliminated all that stuff, which was much more friendly to the environment, and easy for the consumer too, because it was a sealable bag. So yeah, we've made that change a while, and then we've had some iterations in terms of our packaging look and feel, and stuff like that. So
So could you tell me what is like exactly the component of a flacker? Like, is it all flaxseed?
yeah, it's the flaxseed cracker. It's flaxseed cracker. I mean, about maybe 95+% of most of our crackers have flaxseed in it. Now we do have some that like a black sesame is added in there, so flax gets smaller. We have some newer SKUs or flavors that combine flax and fonio, which is an ancient grain from West Africa. So, not as much flax is used, but primarily on our core items, like the ones back here, are, flax seeds.
What I love about your product is I use it on salads in place of croutons.
Yeah, it's a good way to use it. A lot of people do it that way. So,
Yeah, it's tasty, and you're not getting the bread component if you're keto or you're watching carbohydrates. How was the product received when you first got involved in bringing it to market?
uh, you know, I think I mean, it was good because at the beginning, I mean, what was really intriguing for me about it, because I came from a background where I was marketing, pizza rolls and Old El Paso and all good brands. I still love those, but not the best. Uh, it's not a simple ingredient and not
Are
the
you saying a pizza roll's not healthy, Don? Come on. I'm just kidding
I
ya.
I had some this weekend.
I know. I pizza rolls are like my nostalgic childhood food.
Right. So how they were received. What was intriguing for me is having come from the big company background where you do a bunch of research to kind of come up with a new item, was the fact that Allison had already been serving these to her clients and they were loving it. So it was like almost, hey, this people love them already, and so as we took them to market, I mean, we essentially said, hey, here's the product, here's what we think a package design will look at. We went to the wedge and met with the buyer and said, "Would you carry these?" And they said, "Yeah, we'd carry that." It seemed simple ingredients, and so the way we started, it was maybe 5 co-ops here in town, and how we got trial was to do demos, and so that was a very concentrated target market, because that's who we're going after, people who are a little bit more health conscious, who are concerned about organic and things like that. So when they tried them, they loved them, and that's how we built sales up. Not everyone loves Flackers. I'll be honest with that. I mean, we can be kind of polarizing because some people just don't like seeds, or they don't like the taste of flax seeds. Not like any product, right?
Yeah.
But they were well received, particularly when you serve it with hummus and guacamole, some really good dips. They're a perfect carrier for a lot of healthy dips.
I love that it's like a receptacle, right? For the labna
Totally.
or whatever it is that you're bringing up towards your face. And, sometimes you just don't want a piece of vegetable with some of these dips. You want something that's a little heartier. And again, I think the combination is great when it's substituting for a crouton on a salad. You said
Absolutely.
you have a lot of background in packaged goods. How has the industry changed for you since COVID?
Well, COVID, well, I mean, boy, I mean, I think we're still reeling from the effects of COVID in terms of what's going on in the industry. I mean, it's been a tough year. I think industry wide, so we actually had one of our best years ever in 2021, which was kind of the rebound from the initial COVID. And what's really difficult is trying to figure out, well, why, right? Everyone knew when COVID hit, the shelves were empty because people were running to the shelves, and it affected supply chain. And, we certainly had effects like that. But then when it rebounded, in 2021 for us, it was, well, why did that happen, so dramatically? And why did, so the way, in my view, the industry has changed is, you had phases. You had what I just described, where there were supply chain issues, distributors as well as grocery stores were really, and they were selecting what goes on the trucks because there's limited space and they wanted to get stuff to. So sometimes if you're not the best, if you're not Cheerios or the best selling items or flour or whatever, you end up, not making it on the truck and not making it on the shelves. And then you have out of stocks. And, so you had issues like that. And then, when it got back, things started correcting itself there. I think people there were some probably consumer behavior changes that forced people to, not force, but they just got back to doing a little bit more normal stuff. But you also had a shift to online buying, Amazon and Instacart, and so you had this huge behavior shift that happened, and really it's hard to, especially as a smaller company, to figure out what is really happening, because you don't have all that research and feedback directly from consumers. You just have to kind of go by what happens in the industry and try to apply it to what happened to your product. So most recently, in the last year, we all know that inflation has been and still is a big concern for consumers, and how that impacts their behavior. How it's impacted our business is Flackers is more of a premium priced item. We didn't we chose not to take our price up because, I knew that, and I didn't want consumers to have to spend, you know, a lot. I wanted to stay where we're at. Now,
Yeah.
some retailers went ahead and took the price up anyways, which is a little disconcerting, even though we didn't make any changes. But what happened is, I think consumers, just imagine someone's got $100 to spend on groceries, and all of a sudden it only goes so far. They're going to start making selection of what do they choose to buy or not. And in our case, I think some consumers decided to walk away for a bit on Flackers, but we still have our core set of consumers, and we still do a good amount of business online, and I think that's kind of how it's affected us. And I think, based on what I know from others too, it's the same thing. The higher priced items got, as well as higher priced grocery stores, started seeing some changes, and I think that's impacted a lot of the brands and the smaller brands out there in the business.
Are the higher price grocery stores, I don't want to say struggling, but having a harder time with customers as the dollar is not going as far?
You know, I think so. Some categories are doing great. Some retailers are doing great. I think the natural product side of the industry has not done as well as the grocery side, from what I hear. Um, so it's again, it's very hard to figure out exactly what's going on. Like in crackers versus cereal, or
Yeah.
frozen food or produce. It depends on the category, and it depends on the brand, and it depends on the retailer in a lot of
You
cases.
can kind of see that too, because if you're spending, $150 a week on groceries and your $150 is now getting you two bags, or maybe it used to get you three or four, you do, I'm just speaking of myself, like I think about, okay, where am I going? What do I need to buy today? Is it toilet paper, paper towels, dishwashing soap? Because I make a different choice for the retailer than if I'm making like a meal that I'm going to cook from a recipe and I need specific vegetables. Then I think of who that retailer is, or like snack items and those kind of things. I just sort of pick up along the way. I'm not intentional about it, but I am intentional about like health food items, or, I need protein powder, or so it is interesting to think about where you shop and how that's changed. And during the pandemic, I just went to the closest place. I filled the cart in the shortest amount of time I could with literally just staples, wandering through the rows. Very little impulse purchasing happened. I just was so focused on getting in and out and getting my mask properly positioned. And,
Right.
it was just a whole different grocery shopping experience.
It sure was. And I think, what I've heard also is that, the number of, like, you always look at yourself and try to interpret consumer behavior based on what you do. And me too. I used to, I'd go to the local London Byerly's. I'd go to the Linden Hills Co-op because it's in my neighborhood. I would go to Whole Foods, and I would go to Trader Joe's. That was kind of my
Yep.
circle of retailers. And what I have heard that, consumers have changed that habit as well. They're making less shopping trips to different places. And so there's a lot of different dynamics that happen and have happened because of COVID. That it's, I mean, boy, if I had time to kind of really dig in and really decipher what's going on, it's an interesting exercise.
Yeah. Do you ever market like with others? So for instance, you mentioned that this is a great product with a hummus. There's local Baba's hummus, or
Yep,
like the gals that have the plucky pickle dip. That would also maybe be a good receptacle.
for sure. Yeah, we did. I mean, we haven't been doing demos since COVID and post COVID, because stores stopped doing demos. But historically, yeah, we would line up and do dual demos, and locally, but also around the country. To the extent that you attend demos is, if you're not doing it locally, I mean, there's been so many demos I've done through the years. I mean, I think the most recent it was actually after COVID, where I went to Lakewinds, and I love doing demos because you get that consumer feedback. And
Are the stores not doing demos as much?
no, they are now. I think they're back at it. But for a time they weren't at all. and so we just haven't kind of fully re-engaged to kind of do
Right.
that as part of our marketing mix. So, but stores are doing it. But to answer your question, yeah, we used to demo with specific hummuses, or I mean, a lot of times we would use the store stuff as well.
Oh yeah,
But
I suppose.
yeah, but we also, yeah, so we did do that, and when we resume doing that, it's always a great way to do it, because you kind of also sometimes split the cost of doing a demo.
Right,
If you're
right.
hiring someone to do it,
Does social media come into play for you in a big way?
it does. It does. I mean, we're active on, we're most active on Instagram and Facebook. We've done some Pinterest, and we've done some specific programs. We have over the years collected a good database of our own, folks that we email to. So we're kind of marketing through to them that way, and they come and they buy on our website. But we reflect that on Instagram and on Facebook, and we try to stay active, with not always a sale, but some interesting, if it's Valentine's Day or Heart Healthy Month, we'll
Right.
try to reflect what's going on or might be in people's mindset during those times.
Are there brands that you admire locally that you're just like, wow, they're just knocking it out of the park?
You know who I so good friends of mine are like Seven Sundays, and I love their marketing and their branding, and
And they're a
how,
muesli company, and they've been featured on this program, so you can find their podcast if you look back at past episodes.
yeah, Hannah and Brady are terrific people, and great business people, and they have a good product, and their marketing, I think it's genuine, and I love, I follow them, and
Yeah.
I like to see what they do. They bring their kids in sometimes and things like that. So I definitely admire what they're doing.
Flackers can be found where specifically? Everywhere?
Not everywhere. I wish. That's always what we're striving for. I mean, I think there's probably some places you'll not find us, just because it's not appropriate, not right for a specific retailer. But generally you should, you can find us at the co-ops. Not all of them, which is, I we got to do a little work on that, and you know, you know, we're at Whole Foods Market nationally as well as locally. We're in the Lunds and Byerly stores around town, and Hy-Vee stores. Um, so you can find us locally around in those stores
All
and
right.
some others.
And people can buy them at your website too.
Absolutely, you can buy us on our website. Yeah,
And what's your website address?
just flackers.com, flackers.com.
All right, awesome. So if people want to give Flackers a shot, I would highly recommend it. They're really tasty. I love the everything bagel flacker.
Oh, good.
It's one of
Yeah.
my personal favorites. And like I said, I use it. I'm not a big dipper, so I'm not like into dips really, but I am into using it. I kind of just crunch them up and use them on salads and anything that needs a little extra crunch.
That's probably a really good one for that, and that's the one that where it's where we mixed flax and fonio, and for those that don't know, fonio is an ancient grain from West Africa that is great story because it grows in drought-like conditions. It's highly sustainable, and I think we're unique in companies that are actually using that. So
I love it. Well, thank you for finding alternative grains and for thinking about the environment too. That's important as we move along here in our food trajectory. It's been great talking to you. It is Don Kelly. It is Flackers, and you can find them at your favorite co-ops, at Whole Foods, and you should find them because they're delicious.
well, thank you for the endorsement. I appreciate
Thanks,
that,
Don.
and it's
Okay, we'll
great
talk
talking to you,
soon.
Stephanie.
All
All
right,
right, bye bye.
bye-bye.